Hey, how's it going, everybody, and welcome back into the SFS channel. My name's Gavin, and today I've got 5 must-sit fantasy football wide receivers for week 1 of NFL action here. Whether it's the matchup or some type of nagging injury, we've got some reasons today why I don't love these players as lineup plays this week, and I think that there's definitely a slew of other better options here. The wide receiver position is one of the deepest in fantasy that we have, so it's important that we're making the right lineup choices every week and making sure that we've got ourselves the best situation and potential opportunities to go out there and win those weekly matchups. So with that being said, drop down, give today's video a like, subscribe if you're new around here. I post fantasy content almost multiple times a day here during the regular season, every day leading up to those Sunday football matchups. And obviously we've got ourselves Thursday and Monday night football as well. So thank you all so much for tuning in. Let's hit that intro and get right into today's players. As always, Eric and I are here to help you all be the best fantasy players you can be this season. So again, if you have any questions for us, drop those down in the comment section below. Go check out the free community Discord invite link, which is down in the description of today or any episode that we post here on the channel. That's another way to get personalized access and content from us. But if you'd like us to set your lineups for you, give you our weekly rankings, and get you some other in-depth content that's exclusive to SFS Gold members, that's going to be linked to our website. You see that up on your screen. That is also in the description of today's video or every single other episode here on the channel. So go check out any of those other videos we posted so far this week. This is our 4th installment of lineup advice already for week 1 this season. So with that being said, Marquez Callaway for the New Orleans Saints is my first must-sit wide receiver for this week. This is a tough one for me. I think that he has a lot of upside this week, but I also think that the situation is less than optimal for him. As a Green Bay Packer fan, I've closely watched what the Packers secondary has done the past calendar year from a defensive perspective, and Jair Alexander is one of the most underrated shutdown corners in the game right now. Last season, he held some of the top wideouts in the league to just a handful of catches and virtually no yards on a per-game basis, including completely shutting Calvin Ridley out last year. 0 catches, 0 yards, literally a dud, no-show in fantasy. Marquez Callaway is the acting wide receiver 1 for this team, and I'm not so sure that Jair will shadow him for the entirety of this game, but for an undrafted player who is essentially ascending at this point in time, we haven't actually seen him produce elite numbers in an NFL game yet. He had 1 solid performance last season. He did play very well in the preseason, and I might note that Shaq Griffin, the corner he was repeatedly beating in the preseason against Jacksonville, is an actual legitimate player and shouldn't go without notice and respect to Marquez Callaway for making those plays. But Jair Alexander is a different animal, and I think that when I look at the cornerback matchups for this week and consider who's actually healthy out there, this might be one of the toughest weekly matchups. And for a player who, like I said, is ascending, hasn't quite hit the top of his game yet. It's week 1 with Jameis Winston. I don't know if Green Bay is exactly going to consider Marquez Callaway or Tre'Quan Smith the number 1 option and send, I don't know which one of those 2 players' way Alexander will be sent, but I can at least imagine that he's going to see him a healthy amount of time in that game. And that's not a matchup you want to see in week 1. That's not a player you want to see lined up across from a flex player who you're looking to give your lineup some upside for the week. I just think it's very capped, and Marquez is going to have to hit a huge play. He's going to have to burn someone over the top, and it's very possible he does do that. But at the end of the day, I see him as a very boom-bust option this week, and I think that the floor is non-existent because, like I said, will it be Tre'Quan Smith? Will it be Marquez Callaway? I can see one of these players having a very solid game, and I might add, and I will concede, whichever of these 2 players the Packers value as the number 2 wide receiver, I think could have a very productive game. Kevin King or Eric Stokes, whoever it might be, I've been paying a lot of attention to those guys, whether it's me actually being at Packers practice and Packers camp watching them with my 2 eyes or watching them in preseason games. Those are the guys that are getting beat. Those are the guys that are giving up the big plays and that are exploitable for an opposing offense. So if Marquez ends up lining up against one of those 2 players, then I think this matchup gets all the better. But my main concern here is whoever Jair gets thrown out against, that's going to create some problems. That's going to be problematic and cause issues for fantasy owners. And I think at the end of the day, the beat writers and everything you're hearing out of Saints camp is that Marquez is the acting number 1 right now. He is the top and most favored wide receiver for Jameis Winston. That's why I'm concerned about him here this week. Courtland Sutton at New York playing the Giants this week. This is another very underrated defense. I think this is going to be an ugly game. I said this in the must-sit running backs video where I talked about Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game, a lot of sloppy football. You're talking about one team who's got a new quarterback under center. The other team has a very developmental offense with a bad offensive line. And their two most key players, Kenny Golladay and Saquon Barkley, are recovering from somewhat significant injuries. Obviously, Saquon's is much worse with an ACL tear last year, but Kenny's recovering from a hamstring injury. So I just expect sloppy football in week 1 here. And again, Courtland Sutton, on the other side of things, is the Broncos player returning from a significant knee injury. I will say, he did look very impressive. I was very happy with how well he was cutting and how clean his routes were in the preseason. He had a couple impressive touchdown catches. But when you're playing James Bradberry, who was one of the best corners in the league last season, one of the most shut-down players at the position, I think that the route running and the separation Jerry Jeudy is going to create will be more favored here. He was reportedly Teddy Bridgewater's favorite target in preseason and during training camp. So I think that we have to give Courtland some time and just be patient with him here to get acclimated to the system. And again, in a tough matchup week 1, that's not exactly someone you want to toss out there and feed to the wolves in those fancy lineups. So if you have better options, I would go those routes here. I think this is a difficult matchup. And again, for a player who he did shake some rust off in the preseason, but the level of competition is now going to be elevated here with week 1. And again, a significant defense lining up across from him. Courtland's going to need a touchdown this week to make or break his fantasy output. And that's not something you want to have be the determining factor for your lineup on a week-to-week basis. So Courtland Sutton, I would avoid him if you can. I think Jerry Jeudy's a better option, but I wouldn't be surprised again if Courtland ends up getting stuck with James Bradberry in coverage, and then you're looking at a tougher opportunity for him to produce. Kenny Golladay, on the other side of things here, this Broncos secondary got much, much better this offseason. They brought in 2 key players. And you talk about the pass rush this team has. I think Daniel Jones is just going to get whacked by Bradley Chubb and Von Miller this week. That offensive line wasn't blocking third stringers in the preseason. Imagine what's going to happen when you put out one of the most lethal on-paper pass rushes in the league. If they can convert that to real-time production in a real NFL game, it's going to be a nightmare. Daniel Jones is not going to have time to throw the football. You talk about this offense having balance or not having balance. Saquon Barkley is expected to play week 1, but he's expected to be used in somewhat of a limited fashion. So you're now almost relying on DeVante Parker to help this team have a balanced running and passing game attack. Not exactly what the situation is that you'd like to see. And then again, when you're either talking about having Patrick Surtain in coverage back there or it's Kyle Fuller, these are significant players that can go out there and do a number on Kenny Golladay. These are physical athletes. If Kenny's not 100% healthy from that hamstring injury, I don't want to start a receiver who's not running full speed out there and can't cut like he's usually supposed to. So even if he's lined up and on the field, if he is still questionable with that hamstring injury at game time, that is enough for me to back off of him and be a little bit more hesitant to start him. But when you add in the matchup and the difficulties I see this Giants offense having because of injuries, that makes it all the worse here in a situation I want no part of. The Raiders wide receiver core, another group I'm staying away from, whether it's Bryan Edwards, Hunter Renfrow, or Henry Ruggs, who's up on the screen right now. No, thank you. The Ravens are one of the most complete and well-rounded secondaries in the league, and they've got some pass rushers as well. This Raiders offense is nearly an entirely new lineup this year. They've got to figure stuff out, get their chemistry together. Not the matchup you want to see on paper to try and get those things done. Maybe Henry Ruggs has a huge play over the top and scores a 75-yard touchdown, and life is good. But I don't expect him to be a target magnet this week. I don't expect him to just haul in catch after catch and be super productive. Marlon Humphrey is one of the best corners in the NFL. Whoever he lines up against should be expected to have somewhat of a quiet day. Bryan Edwards, who I think has a really nice chance to be a very good sleeper pick this year, he's going to have to try and get acclimated and transition into things. He's a second-year player, but still essentially a rookie in the fact that he did not get much playing time last year because he was hurt and just couldn't find his way onto the field. There's too much question marks, too much concern, reason for me to not like this situation, that I'm going to back off of these guys this week and look elsewhere for my lineup. And then finally here, DeVante Parker for the Miami Dolphins. I don't have Will Fuller this week, which means you're notching DeVante Parker on the depth chart is already the wide receiver 1. But when you talk about now not having Will Fuller, that just increases the talent in that New England secondary, which again is the strength of this team. Stephon Gilmore is injured, but J.C. Jackson is a dang good man corner. he might just get, or DeVante Parker might just get J.C. Jackson for 75% of the snaps. That is not what you want to see. DeVante Parker does not separate at an elite level with his routes. He goes up in high points passes. He wins. He literally just mosses DBs. That's how he gets open. You're going to need a touchdown from DeVante Parker, or it's going to be a very disappointing week. I was going to put Jalen Waddle on this list as well, but part of me likes Waddle a bit more because I can see him being used as an all three level of the defense type player. What do I mean by that? I can see Jalen Waddle catching passes in short, intermediate, and deep passing routes, and the explosiveness he has after the catch, along with that route running he has to separate, makes me feel like he has a better chance to create a big play. To me, DeVante Parker is going to be 4 to 6 catches. Maybe he gets 60 yards, but again, this is a tough corner matchup, and if you don't get that touchdown, those are very underwhelming stats, and those aren't going to give you the numbers you're looking for at the end of the day. So it's a boom or bust touchdown play for me. I don't like DeVante Parker in general this season, and I like him even a little bit less when Will Fuller comes back, because then I think that the targets get more diluted and you have more mouths to feed in this offense. But for this week in particular, I don't like the matchup. I talked about this in the other video I posted today. I think that the Pats are just going to take the run game away and force Tua to pick apart this defense. And if Tua is forcing the ball to Parker, who again, I don't think separates very well and has to win contested balls, those are going to turn into picks because this secondary is dang good. They've got ball hawks back there and they play very technical, sound defense. This is something I'm staying away from at all costs this week. All right, those were 5 must-sit wide receivers in week 1 here for 2021 fantasy football. If you've got any more questions, if you want to talk to me about another player or anything fantasy, drop that down in the comment section below. I'm always happy to get back to you guys and help you out however possible. Remember, go check out SFS Gold, some of those social medias as well that are found in the description of today's video. Basically, everything you could ever need from me here is in the description of our episodes that we post. So go check that stuff out. There's good stuff down there. We've got merchandise as well for SFS. I'm not repping it right now. I'm repping the Wisconsin Badgers, but we've got some great stuff on there that you would love to see. So thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Go check out some of those other episodes, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.